Three different shows, three different shows, three different shows. Game with the real, those with the game. Game with the real, game with the real. Don't question me. Dave is the goat, Dave is out. Dave is the goat, those that are low. I'm on TV. Three different shows, three different shows, three different shows, three different shows. Careful what you say or you'll get too big.
Welcome
Yeah.
to Three Tortured Souls.
Three.
We had a good time this week getting tortured. I don't know if we should mention, but we had a guest with us that jumped in to get tortured with us. That was fun.
Yes, we did. And there he is, JD.
There he is. Hey, JD.
He's been tweaking me all day.
JD got a back behind the scenes look and participation on how exactly we torture ourselves.
I'm sending him a mug for that. Well, tonight I get to host, so I get to make the rules. And
we get to drink, Dave.
You get to drink, yeah.
Perfect.
So we kind of just we all kind of threw out a list. Kenny made a list. We came up with a good one out of the list, and we're going to talk about equipment that we despise or don't like, as it were. And equipment really isn't my thing. So since I'm host, I'm going to flex mine into techniques or decisions or things ghost hunters do that really just kind of irritate the shit out of me. So
I got an itch, JD. Got a big itch, JD. Oh.
All right.
So everybody relax.
Okay.
It's
I'm
gonna be a good
relaxed.
show.
Fuck you, Matt. I mean, what?
Wow.
Right off the bat.
There
Okay,
we
that's
go.
out of my system. Now we can go. I'm good.
Okay.
Feel better.
All right. Good.
All right. So, yeah, like I said, we're just going to talk about some equipment. I'm sure Dave and Kenny are far above me in this wheelhouse. So, other than, like I get it when I get in trouble, like if I start thinking about ghost equipment or if I have questions, I just ask that one or this one. It's good to know. It's good to know your limitations and I don't really have a whole lot of ghost equipment I like anyway. Honestly, the most interesting thing I have now that Dave's kind of sending me some literature on not too long, well, a little while ago, is data loggers. I like the idea of crunching numbers, but having something on your phone that beeps if a ghost is supposed to get by you, I mean, come on, really? That's just irritating as shit to watch people do that.
Right.
So I'm going to start out, and I'll pass it over to Dave to start out the list. You made it on top tonight, Dave.
Whoa.
Typically,
Easy there.
Easy.
relax, Kenny.
Relax, Kenny.
Next
Relax.
week you can be on top.
Sorry.
We all take our turns being on top. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So the first piece of equipment I am going to bring up is the K2 meter. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because people really, at least I think they think that it's a ghost detection device. And the problem with the K2 meter is multifold. You don't get a true actual specific reading. You get a bunch of lights that tell you that, and I'm going to use my cheat notes here, 0 to 1.5, the first green blue light goes on, and then 1.5 to 2.5, the green light goes on, and the 2.5 to 10 yellow, which is a huge ass range, goes on, and then 10 to 20 orange, and anything but with 20 plus red is emergency alert red. So my problem is you never get a real reading. What is it? You're going back and forth. It has a 5% accuracy. So if you think about it, at the 10 to 20 range, it could be anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5 to what? 20.1, 20.19.9. I mean, it's all over the place. So if you take into account the accuracy, what in the hell are you really getting out of that thing? So the other problem is I mentioned single access, and we all know if it's not a triple access, you have to do a little bit of math. And I know that's hard for some.
I hate math.
But x squared plus y squared plus z squared, and you take the square root of that to get your total field reading if you were going to rotate it and get all three axes on that meter. So JD asks, what does the K2 meter measure again? It measures the electromagnetic field, and within the 50 to 20,000 hertz range, and it has an accuracy of plus or minus 5% at the 50 to 60 hertz range. So as you get above that, it doesn't read anything below that, which that's a problem in itself, because there's some frequencies and things that can happen naturally that are below that frequency. So if you get a man-made electric device pulsing, it can pulse. It's a 60 hertz device, but it can pulse and lead to frequencies that are lower than that because of the pulsing. So my big problem, as I was describing before I mentioned JD's question, was it gives you lights. It doesn't give you actual numbers or readings. So you can't really take that and do anything with it. That you can't analyze it. You can't apply any data analysis or statistics to it. So you're just kind of looking at it going, it flashes red, it flashes yellow, whatever. I don't like that piece of equipment, and actually that's going to be a common theme for me. I don't like any piece of equipment that doesn't spurt out actual numbers and data that you can either write down or data log and go back and analyze later. Comments?
Yep. You're just, for me, that whole thing you just said is why. Whew. Don't make me break out the yellow cards just yet. I mean,
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Dave's on a move tonight.
Anyway, no, I'm good. But yeah, I should relax. I shouldn't get all hyped up about this, but it is. And people, I mean, the fact that they think it detects ghosts and it only detects electromagnetic fields, and it's really not great compared to other meters you can get for slightly more. That's my problem with it.
So I mean, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Oh, well, just what I was going to say is exactly for what like Dave's explanation, the way he can talk and the way he understands it, and I'm sure you too, is exactly why if I have an equipment question, I'm just like, hey Dave, hey Kenny. Very technical. I enjoy it. If I have a question, I go somewhere else. Go ahead, Kenny. Sorry, I started drinking early.
One of the points, Dave, that you touched on is really important to understand, is that the plus or minus the range of oh shit, I'm totally blanking out here.
The accuracy, the plus
accuracy,
or minus 5%.
Yeah.
Yep.
The accuracy of within 5% plus or minus at 50 to 60 hertz. That's important to know, because that's your mains current. So that's your house current. And that's the frequency that it's looking at. That's what it's calibrated for. But if you have other devices, like one that I bring up is a toaster. A simple toaster can run at like 10,000 hertz. So that's completely different. And when you factor in the 5%, you could have readings all over the place. If you have a heater, your water heater that kicks on, in the basement, that sends a pulse through the main system. So you're going to have that rise and fall. It's going to screw it up. That's actually something, I forget his name. I spoke with the president of Alpha Labs, who make the tri-field meters. When I wrote an article about EMF meters, and I spoke to him, and that was one of the things he brought up, that if you're, even when you're using a tri-field meter and you're anywhere in the house that where the water heater kicks on or the generator downstairs kicks on, you're going to have this surge, and it's going to go through the whole house, all the wiring. So it's really important to understand not only that you have this calibration for a specific frequency, but it's not reading just one frequency. So if I'm standing here, say, and Crying Precious Moments here is a power source, and then maybe Mr. Clown twins over here, which is a freaky haunted item, is another power source. All right. Say it's, this is plugged into an outlet. This is plugged into an outlet, and they're both going. And I'm standing here with a K2 meter or, just a single axis meter. It's reading both fields. And you're getting the average of both fields where I am, depending on my location. So this, when I see people using EMF meters and just walking around, like, doing the standard, this kind of shit, it's useless.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt real quick. Sorry, Kenny.
Sure.
But my brother-in-law, my sister, and my brother, nieces, nephews, they're all listening tonight. So, hey, Ryan, Katie, Kyle, Rachel, John, Lori, and Jack. Howdy. Enjoy the show. Going to be a lot of cussing. You might want to send the kids to another room.
It's hard to say, do we need to keep it clean?
This is an
okay, now I got to keep
show.
it clean. So anyway, go ahead, Kenny. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, that's an important thing to remember. I mean, not only are you not logging data,
right?
Not only do the majority that I've observed, this is just my observation, but the majority of ghost hunters that use these don't use them correctly in the aspect of 3 axis. But you have no fucking clue what you're reading. You really don't.
No, and one of the other problems is I tried to look for this. I found the accuracy of plus or minus 5%, but I could find nowhere a listing for the precision of this thing. Are the readings kind of, 2 milligauss, 5 milligauss, 10 milligauss?
Right.
Are they, when you repeat it, is it measuring the same thing over and over again? Which to me, that's a red flag, and I would never buy anything like that.
I would venture to guess, and I want to make sure this is understood. This is a guess, but I would venture to guess that the plus or minus 5% is of the most accurate reading taken. So you would have to know what the source is, what the reading is, and then say, all right, if it's 10 milligauss, so it's plus or minus 5% of 10 milligauss. So that's what I would. I mean, just based on
that's a good assumption. I think
on calibration shit that I've done over the years. That's what I would think. It would be the peak performance.
The problem with this is that if you look at and read any of the literature that has anything to do with electromagnetic fields and the paranormal, this thing will not detect, or at least give you the data to be able to detect and analyze anything that's been published before or what they think is going on.
So that's a K2 meter, JD, and it's just an EMF meter. It's a cheap one. Well, actually, it's not. It was pretty expensive when they were out. I think they're still expensive, like $50 or $60. But it does the same thing as this.
You get what you pay for.
But before I go to the next question, listening to you guys made me think of another question.
Sure.
Just, I guess, the opposite, so to speak. So let's just say what, if anything, could a K2 meter be used for? Like what? Like
paperweight.
Paperweight. That's good. Okay.
No, seriously, it could cue you into areas of high variability that you might want to use better equipment to log data.
That's the kind of what I was thinking of.
I mean, you can hold it up to a wall and find power lines.
That's
you can find sources of power, sources of an electromagnetic field. I mean, because that's what it's reading. Right. But again, and I think I'll have to find it. I posted a video a long time ago where this one next to my microwave, and I had it this way, so the display was facing me, and the back here was next to the microwave, and the microwave was running, and it didn't measure anything. And I was taking video with my phone, but as soon as I turned it 90 degrees, it started going up, and it went up to like 50 or 60. I forget that it's been a while, but it went up significantly. So even if you're next to a wall, you could be right there, almost on the power line, and not read it.
Yep.
Or you could be right next to the ghost.
Whoa.
And not read it.
Here we go. Relax, Tim.
Relax. Calm down, Tim. Don't ask tough questions that would piss somebody off.
Whoa. Okay. I'm glad I got Kenny mid-drink. I owe you one. For making me spit
That was
coffee
a good one.
on my keyboard before.
All right.
So, question: if EMF meters could detect ghosts, wouldn't ghosts have to be electromagnetic energy, drink,
Energy.
and therefore bound by the laws of conventional physics? I'm getting drunk. Or do they just act on electromagnetic energy?
Well,
So,
they would have to obey some laws of conventional physics, I think.
right.
Or do they just act on electromagnetic energy? Well, one of the ideas is that you combine whatever electromagnetic field that the human body produces, which is very low to begin with, and it's hard to detect. And you certainly won't detect it with a K2 meter. So maybe you could pick up something. Yeah, the whole idea, I think, is if consciousness survives or somehow can imprint itself on the environment, that it's an electromagnetic field signature. But that's going way out. That hasn't been proven yet. So you'd have to be able to detect it. The other problem would be, or the other idea would be, do ghosts, if they're electromagnetic or if they have a signal, do they use the mains frequency as a potential carrier? So do you modify or do you use whatever's available in the environment? Which we don't know that. Honestly, they don't know. What they found is that in some haunted locations, there are differences in electromagnetic fields, both the amplitude, the mean, and the variance. And Jason Braithwaite, Dr. Jason Braithwaite, a neuroscientist, did a lot of studies on this. And he found that only in 5% of haunted locations could he find a signature that was related to what Persinger came up with, which had a lot of temporal and spatial variation. And they were very small. I mean, you're talking milliseconds and, milligauss, not a whole lot. And they only found it in 5% of the places. So they don't know if it's due to ghosts. Anybody saying that it's due to ghosts is wrong at this point. We don't know. What we do know is that in some haunted locations, there are variations, and they tend to be associated with locations where people report things. But is it natural? And is your brain seeing it as an ambiguous stimuli? Or is there just chance finding? We don't know yet. We really don't know.
So, just to add to this, based on this question, so electromagnetic field detectors are detecting two things. They're detecting the electric field and a magnetic field. The electric field is generated by a line being powered. So a good example is that when you have a lamp, okay, it's like Dave's lamp in the background. If that's turned off, if he turns the switch off, there's still power going up to that switch. Mm-hmm. So there's power in the line. That's an electric field. There's electricity in that line up until the switch. So it could read the electric field. The magnetic field is created when electricity flows, the flow of electricity. So when he turns the switch on and it lights up like that, now you have a flow going and it's creating a magnetic field, which is created by electricity. Therefore, you get the electromagnetic field. So if we're talking hypothetically about a ghost, it would have to be electricity to generate an electric field, but also it would have to be some kind of electricity that's flowing in order to create the magnetic field, or magnetic in nature itself, I guess, to create such a field that would be picked up.
And I think we talked about this in the show we did on mechanisms. We went into some detail that would be what would be involved with it to be detected by an electromagnetic field sensor. So
there's a lot.
There's a lot to it.
If we're talking about, if we're going off the idea that ghosts and spirits are basically us without the meat suit, then we don't generate enough to set off a K2. If you're holding a tri-field, one of them, I forget which one. There's two versions. I think if you're holding one, you have the potential to make it have a reading, a very low reading. But even so, that's talking about a very expensive meter compared to like this. I mean, this is like $50 or $60 compared to the tri-field meters, which are several $100s, and read in all axis at the same time. So if ghosts are supposed to be us without the meat suit, I don't see them generating that kind of field where you could just, wave this around and say, "Oh, it lit up. There's Kenny." No, I don't think that's going to happen. Damn.
Yeah, I think the whole point is that people living do generate an electromagnetic field, but you're not going to detect that with the K2 meter. And maybe with the tri-field natural meter, I think all you're really detecting is the disturbance in what you're blocking, because that one only detects changes. So if you walk by and block something that it's normally reading, it sees it as a dip, it'll read that. So it's not really sensitive enough. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment right now to be able to detect a human electromagnetic field any distance from the body at all. Right. And it's really not more than a couple inches, couple feet at the most. And
that's an important point, because electromagnetic field strength drops off dramatically from the source. Right. So even if you have power lines going outside your house, once you get a few feet away, it drastically goes down, until you could be, and I'm estimating here, but you could probably be like 10 to 15 feet away and not pick it up at all. Yep. So
depends on the strength of the field, obviously, as far as how far it drops off. So real quick, JD Braithwaite, was he the guy with the God helmet? No, that was Dr. Michael Persinger.
All right. What range?
So I looked over to see how much electricity or energy a human body could convert. And it looks like it's at rest around 100 watts of power, but for some reason that doesn't sound like what I'm used to. But anyway, on to the next.
This one, I have an idea about this because I've seen people. I've seen ghost hunters and websites, ghost hunting websites, usually say between like 6 and 12 or 7 and 12 or something like that, some kind of range.
I've even said 2 to 8 or 2 to 7.
Something like that. And I believe, let me see. I think I have, So on the older EMF meters before the K2, there was the Dr. Gauss meter. And that was when I got into ghost hunting in the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. These were the thing. Yep. You wanted that. And between 2 and 7, if you look on the scale here, that should come into focus. That's your yellow zone. And I think from what I've learned, from what I've looked at, I'm kind of come on, focus.
Is that you or is that me?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I'm gathering that ghost hunters looked at this and said, well, usually when we get close to like an outlet or something, it goes into the red. But if it's green, usually there's nothing going on. So if it's in yellow, that might be something. So I think this was adopted. I mean, this is just my observations, but I think the yellow zone was adopted as the ghost zone. And it was like, if you get something between 2 and 7, look for a ghost. You might have a ghost there. So that's my take on it.
All right.
Yeah, and most of the stuff they're looking at now, you're talking the publications show very small changes.
Right.
And it's all based on the baseline. What is the baseline data? And then they're looking for number of standard deviations above or below. So they're getting into some pretty heavy analysis and statistics trying to figure this out. And it's just not going to happen with a K2 meter. So what are you going to do? Okay, so statistically, there's more yellow lights than green lights. That doesn't mean anything.
Thanks, honey.
All right.
Oh,
Okay,
Bob.
do
There
any
are
of these
no
products-
stupid questions, just stupid
Yeah, I wasn't even going to read that.
people. Sorry.
I won't say a word.
All right, like things that lay on the floor. Do any of these products have a warning on the product packaging to warn that the product can pick up dangerous power lines and stay clear?
Well, I don't know if I've seen anything that says it's dangerous,
Right.
but I think the whole implied, let's go back to the K2 meter, the implication with the red. Anytime you see red, stop, danger, too high. And I've heard the ghost hunting shows say that very high EMFs can cause people to have adverse effects, which it's not even really very high readings. Again, it's back to the fluctuations that maybe cause some people to have some sort of experience. But I mean, I think Kenny wrote an article. It was a pretty good one on EMFs and the fact that the World Health Organization, United Nations, anything you look at that has a literature review, they don't really see a detrimental effect to high EMFs. I mean, obviously, it's probably not good to stand there in a very high electromagnetic field because 2 new studies came out and said that our cells and there can be a response in your brain to low-level switches in magnetic fields. So we really don't know exactly, but for the most part, I think go talk to people, the row of houses that live under high tension lines. Do they have any problems?
Right.
It's not ionizing radiation. You got to understand the difference between electromagnetic fields and ionizing radiation. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Ionizing is what causes damage. Non-ionizing does not.
Yep.
Like I work with X-rays all day.
Mm-hmm.
That causes damage, and you can get really fucked up. So I've seen really bad pictures and videos. I've been there, but yeah, this is all we're dealing with. All non-ionizing, so there is no threat of harm. But yeah, like you said, Dave. I mean, even if you pick up if you're using one of these things, you have to remember it's 20 plus, which is the red zone. 20 plus. So that gives you 20 up to whatever. Okay. And I can sit here. Shit. I'm going to show you. Hold on a second. I'm right here. I'm not leaving. But I want to show you this.
Let's put this back up for Kenny.
So this. Shut up. I used to have this like on the end of the desk here. Kind of like this when it's hot out, so I don't have to use the air conditioning, especially if I'm doing a podcast. But this, if I put this meter up to it when it's on, it maxes out, and this maxes out at 200 milligauss. All right, so if I'm this close, maxes out, but once I come about this far away, it's almost no reading at all. And you got to think about that. So if somebody says, "Well, your alarm clock, is giving off." Holy shit, like 100 milligauss or 50 milligauss. It's dangerous. You can't be right next to it. Well, most people aren't sleeping on an alarm clock. It's a good, at least like 2 feet away from them. And that's far enough for the field to actually diminish where it's not there. There is no harm. So these are things we have to, the ghost hunters really have to take into account and understand, like, okay, it's not as bad as we're making it out to be. But that's
there are reports and case studies where they found like a certain digital clock or something thrown off pulsing. Now remember, pulsing high fields, which is different than just a totally high field that's static and remains. But the pulsing high fields, and there's some reports where people said that they had experiences, paranormal, ghostly experiences, and they identified that high pulsing of that item, but then when they took the item away, the experiences went away. And there's a lot of literature on that it's debatable with Persinger study and other things, but what they think is your brain is able to detect that as some sort of ambiguous stimuli and it doesn't know what to do with it. And based on your prior beliefs and the context of the situation and being nighttime and being half asleep, they all work together and make you think you're having some sort of paranormal experience.
That's really interesting. I like that.
Cool.
All right.
What do we got?
Remind me to ask you about that later.
Okay.
Wouldn't things work like the internet? I have a phone. It's not hooked up to a box or even the charger yet. I'm able to see and hear.
I don't understand.
I don't either. Maybe Kathy, could you kind of like do another question and reword that a little bit? I think you mean like
Can you
you're still able to get information to and from the phone without it being hooked up. I think.
They've found some people seem to be more sensitive to changes in magnetic fields, but I don't know if that's where she's going with that.
I mean,
think
I've read
that's
up
what I'm thinking.
on electromagnetic sensitivity, and it, although people do claim it, it's not. I don't see it as a valid claim yet because they are usually in an environment where they're surrounded by.
That's the problem in
Electromagnetic
shielded,
fields.
yeah, in shielded things where they did studies and they changed magnetic fields. And there's two new ones, relatively new within the last 2 years. One that shows that when you rotate a magnetic field, you see different responses in brain scans. So they're saying the human body, the brain, can pick up changes in the magnetic field. And then another one showed that cells are, through some sort of quantum mechanism, are able to register an autofluoresce based on magnetic field changes. However, you got to remember that's in a shielded environment where they're changing just certain things. And it's not in an environment where you're continuously flooded with magnetic fields. And there's more and more of that happening these days as our homes become more electronic. You have Wi-Fi, you have your cell phone, computers,
The refrigerator's Wi-Fi.
refrigerator. I mean, look at the paper we're working on right now. When we ran a 3-axis meter data logging, look at the variability in that just in one location.
Right.
I mean, there's a ton of magnetic fields bombarding you all the time. So how would your brain be able to pick out these little signals that might be relevant compared to all the background noise? That they don't know yet.
Right.
Here's a question. I'm sure it's fun.
Man, we're going to kill this all with magnetic fields here.
This turned into an EMF show.
I told you, it doesn't matter what we pick. We can talk 2 hours.
That's all right.
Follow-up question. And again, I am fairly certain I know the answer. Did any of these products say for entertainment use only? I know that they can be used for other things, but it seems like entertainment is the main use of the product.
So I haven't seen any EMF meter with that disclaimer on the product because these are also, you can pick these up at like Home Depot and Lowe's in addition to any number of online sources. I mean, they do have, they have a purpose. I mean, they actually do measure EM fields, and it's almost, I guess, in the untrained, where you're not a professional in this area. If for the untrained, it's usually marketed as, hey, check your house for high levels of EM, and you want to move like your bed away from it, or your your couch or whatever, so you walk around your home. And again, like I do remember reading the instructions off of one at Lowe's. Like I stood in the aisle and opened the box and put it back. I didn't buy it, but I opened the box.
Oh, that goes back to an old
would
story.
you buy that box, or would you?
Did
go
you
to
buy that one? Or
just,
yeah. So you did open the first box.
Yeah. See? Shut up, bitches.
He's enforcing his fear and
Right.
That's
on
why I
other
do
people.
it. You don't you don't buy the first box. You never.
Yeah,
The
because
first
people like
box is
Sandy opens that
demonstration.
fucker and stands there and reads it.
Demonstration
so
purposes
busted.
only.
Busted.
You just
He's a
confirmed. You
generator
just
of his own
absolutely
superstition.
confirmed. Donna called you and told you, and you just said it. She called you out the last show.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah, it's funny.
So yeah, I remember the instructions saying that to walk around your home and check for high levels, which could be dangerous, which could cause, health problems and stuff. It didn't list health problems, but it mentioned it could cause health problems or other issues. But it didn't tell you actually how to use it. It didn't tell you, it was a single axis meter, which it was.
Right.
It just told you to walk around and basically do a ghost hunting sweep around the place. So, yeah, big problem. So no disclaimers that I know of.
Let's see. Let me get this.
Kathy does follow up.
Oh, here we go. Where is she?
They're airwaves. So she's talking about radio frequencies. There's electricity throughout the air. So radio frequencies are not the same as electricity through your power lines. We're talking about a different entity, for lack of a better word. But that's a completely different. Yeah, we're two different topics. Radio frequencies, yes, they're radio waves. And they're part of the electromagnetic spectrum, but a different part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Okay, another from JD. I'm guessing EMF meters and ghost boxes stay popular because they make for good TV on ghost hunter shows and people see them used on TV. But wouldn't you think people would get bored of blinking lights as proof?
You would think.
I think all of us had the immediate same feeling.
Yeah.
It reinforces their belief.
You need that reaction. You need the LEDs to light up. You need the buzzer or the beep, 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 beep. You need that to create drama in the show.
I think this is the reason also why, Dave said, he would love to see a meter that actually gives you specific data and numbers. But I also think the reason you see so many, I guess, for lack of a better word, like home produced, ghost hunting equipment that comes with lots of lights and spinning lights and rods that stick out that change colors. I think that this reinforces the kind of like what you said, like you need to have that excited state when you're ghost hunting. It's easy, to give me a sign, and it lights up. Right. I think that reinforces the kind of like the adrenaline addiction, maybe not an addiction, but that adrenaline that you're always shooting for. I think that all the lighting, the lights, the buzzing, I think that that's what keeps people getting that type of equipment.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim, because taking actual data in spreadsheets and doing an analysis, looking for the number of standard deviations above or below the mean, that's not exciting to people. But that's the way you actually have to look at it.
Yeah. The lights and the noises, that's exciting. That's something that you can do a jump cut to. When you edit in a jump cut, you can be like, you can have the cast member be like, holy shit, and then cut directly to a meter lighting up and going, oh shit, look at it, it's going up, holy shit. And you have that drama, that excitement on the TV show, when in reality it's like, okay, what big deal? What caused it?
Yep.
Are you standing next to a power outlet? Did you just turn a light on? Did you key up your two-way radio?
Oh yeah.
What did you do? There's a lot more to it than just lights lighting up.
Yeah.
And see, I have to say, I mean, that's part of the reason, like, I kind of started changing was I kind of got tired of it. I got tired of the blinking lights. Like at some point for me, it was just like what am I getting? Like, I don't understand what I'm getting. Like, it was a whole lot of fun. Believe me. Like I loved that shit at the beginning. Wandering around in the dark and something buzzes or goes off, or a light, and you're already conditioned yourself to believe that there's a ghost nearby. If that happens, like that's like a lot of fun. Like that's an adrenaline rush, like, but at some point I just like, what does it mean? Like, there's got to be more to this. And that ended up just getting rid of that stuff for me.
Yeah. So Bob said, sounds like a project for the Three Tortured Souls. Come up with an EMF that gives you real data. There are data logging EMF meters. They're, I think the lowest end one you'll get is $200 to $300. And one of the ones I got that not only gives you the amplitude, how high it is, you can figure out the frequency, and those run about $1,200. So they're out there.
They are out there.
All right.
All right.
I think we've killed that one.
So, Dave, your first one took up
Sorry.
40 minutes.
Sorry.
Shit.
Go to Kenny or Tim. You come up with the next one.
All right, Kenny, you go to the next one. What's yours?
All right. So one of the big thing. I mean, first and foremost, I hate all ghost hunting gadgets. I really do. I think
Same.
all of them are useless. Not useless, but they do not do what the ghost hunters think they do. So with that said, one of the ones I despise the most is the Xbox Kinect, otherwise known as the SLS camera. And I'll explain one of the main things. And I wrote a really long article about this for Skeptical Inquirer. One of the things that I did find when I spoke with Microsoft, I talked to some of the reps at Microsoft, is that you need an area. Like, these things are designed to look in an area, which is called the play area. And it's got to be about 6 to 12 feet wide. It's also got to be at the minimum 6 feet from the Kinect. So there can't be anything within 6 feet, because then it screws it all up. But from 6 feet on, and especially if you have two players, then it goes to 8 feet. But you need clear space. No furniture, no obstacles, nothing in there. The Kinect has to stay put. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but when you actually played with the Kinect the way it's supposed to be, connected to an Xbox, when you turn the Xbox on, it actually went up and down. It looked at the environment. It scanned. It looked at it and said, all right, this is where I am. I know where everything is. This is what it's supposed to be. If anything comes into my play area, it's supposed to be a person. So when we look at ghost hunters who slap it onto a handle and a tablet and continually walk around areas where there is obstacles like furniture and people and like everything. I mean, pretty much everything you see in the environment comes into play. You have problems. The Kinect is programmed to look for people, look for a figure, and it's got a database of thousands of different body types. I mean, short, tall, because we're talking anywhere from little kids up to full-grown adults. And when I say full-grown, I mean all shapes and sizes of full-grown, like very tall, very large, whatever. The software also has to compensate for people turning. So you see me like this, okay? You can see both arms. You can see the tops of my legs here. But if I'm dancing, because, you know, one of the popular games is like a dancing game, and I go like this, what do you lose? You lose this arm. So because that's not there anymore, the software has to look at it and goes, all right, what's going on? Okay, this arm, which is supposed to be there, isn't there anymore. I'm going to make an educated guess and say that's behind them or in front of them. And I mean, they had to do it with both arms, because even though this arm is still visible to the 3D infrared software that's looking at it, this arm now blends in with the body. So both arms are actually missing, and it has to make a guess. So based on this software and how it works, you can have things like vacuum cleaners, trash bags, pillars, backpacks, chairs, the side of couches themselves with the cushions, beds with pillows. You can have almost anything look like a person. So with that said, and that's just one flaw that I have with it. But with that said, when ghost hunters take this out handheld and start walking around an allegedly haunted place, and start waving it, I mean, they're literally going like this with it all around until a stick figure pops up. That doesn't mean the stick figure is a ghost. It doesn't. It means the software recognized something in that area that kind of resembled a person. And I'll try to explain this real quick. When it sees the environment, it's putting out a speckle pattern. If you've ever seen Paranormal Activity, like 3 or 4, I forget which one, but they're using it in the movie, and the whole living room is lit up with these dots all over the place. That's what it puts out. The software knows where every single dot is. So when the camera, when the infrared sensor is looking at those dots, it's saying, okay, this dot should be right next to this one, but it's back here. That means there's more depth. It's going back further. If it's oblong, if the dot deforms a little bit, that means it's around a curve. It's going on the side of an object. That's how it builds a 3D environment. So it's just looking at that. It's not perfect. It's going to see things that aren't there and assign stick figures. It doesn't mean it's a ghost. It means it's mistaken. Especially when you're fucking looking at it. You're looking at the scene. You see there's a chair there and there's a stick figure on the chair. No, it doesn't mean a ghost is sitting in the chair. It means
yes, it does.
The chair. Shut up, Tim. Relax.
Oh.
Wow.
It means the chair is showing up as a stick figure. And with that, I mean, there's a bunch of different things. There's 2 things I can tell you that really blow that idea, the whole idea the ghost hunters have with that, what I just explained, out of the water. One is that when I had my Kinect on several things, like a chair and a vacuum cleaner, and I took a infrared floodlight that you would put on like a surveillance camera and just went across like this, shined it onto the vacuum cleaner, totally fucked up the Kinect. It didn't see it anymore. It went away. The ghost went away and didn't come back. The second thing is that with all this night vision technology, night vision cameras that people have, surveillance cameras or just like Sony night shot cameras and stuff like that they're carrying around that amplify infrared light. If you think you see a ghost represented by that stick figure, you should be able to turn that video camera on that same area and see what is reflecting the infrared light. You should be able to see the ghost, but nobody does. Nobody. So there's my spiel. That's my problem. Any comments from you guys?
I have a question. So are the sensors supposed to be... I have a question, but I'm going to ignore it.
Oh.
I'm going to block you tomorrow.
Are the sensors supposed to be stationary?
Yes.
Okay. That's yes. What I noticed you emphasizing that they're moving it. I don't have one, so I've never used one, but the way it sounds like it's supposed to be stationary. It gets a comfort kind of pick when nothing's supposed to be blocking the zone.
Right.
Then when something enters the zone, it does its job.
Exactly.
That's what it does.
It's supposed to.
It does its job. But when you start moving it relative to the Kinects, it thinks it's stationary and there's a bunch of shit moving around inside the zone. So it tries to compensate going, how I'm seeing shit, but I'm not seeing all of it. So let's just go ahead and compensate with a stick figure.
Then there's a couple things with that. One is that when I talked to the people at Microsoft, they did acknowledge that there was a problem with people sitting down. If people sat down, that took away the thigh area. It took away a lot of the body, and it kind of screwed you up. So it would screw up what the Kinect saw, and it would actually give you those mutant kind of stick figures that you see. I mean, if you Google Xbox Kinect ghosts, you're going to see like mutant stick figures. They are not anything that most of them don't look like people. They look like something from horror movies. So that's one of the issues. Another issue is that I totally had a brain fart here.
No worries.
God. What was I talking about? Jesus Christ.
Stick figures.
I totally screwed up with that. Let me drink more.
Drink. Well, that makes sense. At least for me to think. I mean, it's just another example of a ghost hunter using it in the wrong way. It's almost like I mean, it's predictable that it's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So yeah, I remembered.
Oh,
So
I knew that would help.
Thank you. The Kinect has been incorporated and adopted by other groups, scientists, actually, archaeologists, for the most part, because they've taken it because the code is open source. Like Microsoft released it and said, okay, this is now open source. You can use this because they were tired of people hacking it. So they opened it up because it has applications in other areas. Like you can attach the Kinect onto a robotic car or an RC car and put it into a cave where people can't go or can't fit into, and it can map out the cave. But the caveat to that is that it's not using the drop and drag open source code. It's modified. They take the source code and they modify it to fit their needs, to suit their needs, to suit their tools. So it's not off the shelf. It's been customized to what it's being used for. With ghost hunting, especially like companies like Digital Dowsing, which were the first to really repurpose it as an SLS camera, which means they 3D printed a different body, took the guts out of the Kinect, and just put it in a 3D body. They used the open source code. They didn't change anything except put a frame around it, so it looks like it's from them, but it's not. It's the same code. So it's when you turn that on for your ghost hunt, you are turning on a video game. That's what you're doing. And it's looking for people, 2 players or 4 players, to be exact. So it's definitely playing a video game. It's not looking for ghosts. It's looking for anything that looks like a person.
And it's doing its job.
Yeah, it's doing exactly what it's programmed to do.
But the one thing I'll credit Digital Dowsing for, if you look at their website on any of their products, it does say for entertainment purposes only.
I agree. They
at least put that disclaimer on there that it should not be used as proof of anything.
Yes.
It's entertainment, and at the best, it's for maybe researching and trying to figure out what's going on.
You know what's funny about that is that I've seen the guy talk in person.
I think he did. Did Bill Chappell?
Bill Chappell
pass away, or is he still?
No, he's still around.
Okay. I'm thinking of somebody else.
Bill Chappell, I've seen him talk about it, and in person, it's a different game. I mean, he really slips into the basic ghost hunting thing. Oh, this does this, and it looks like it picks up things that aren't there, and this and that. It's very not disclaimer like. It's only in the official sense because he's the only smart one. A lot of these ghost hunting companies are really not smart. They're putting out claims that are just unsupported. But at least he puts out on his website, for entertainment. When there's videos or an official thing, like I remember I was part of I was interviewed for Popular Science magazine on ghost hunting gadgets, and so was Bill Chappell and Ben Rafford and Sharon Hill, and my friend Mr. Baggins. But Mr. Baggins told Bill Chappell not to talk to them. But Bill Chappell said he doesn't believe in ghosts. He doesn't believe that these things detect ghosts. He just makes products for people to be entertained. And I'm still surprised that he sells shit. But, oh well.
Interesting.
Want to spend your money? Go ahead.
So, just for S&G's question, can night vision goggles be used for ghost hunting?
If you're
seen them used before.
Don't want to fall down the steps.
Yeah, sure. If you want to make sure nobody's playing tricks on you in the dark, sure.
I mean, that gets into like, all right, why are people turning out the lights? Why? If you want to do that, you're going to make it spookier. Definitely, it's going to make it spookier because now you can't see what makes a noise. So, but follow the logic there. Why are you going to turn the lights out just so you can use night vision goggles or night vision cameras? Keep the lights on. I know there's this long-standing idea that maybe ghosts only manifest within the infrared spectrum, but that would negate all the eyewitness accounts that don't use the infrared spectrum.
And it would also negate the fact that there's a lot of ghost sightings in fully lit daytime conditions.
Right.
I started to say, wasn't there something done where they looked at a lot of reports of ghost sightings, and most of them, I don't know if it's the vast majority, but the majority of them turn out to be in the daytime?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
I can't remember. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah, I don't remember the percentage, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And everybody always says, if you're going to investigate something and somebody's claim that they saw a ghost, do it during the time they thought they saw it. So there's a lot of them that happen during the day when people are fully awake. It does not only happen at night. Now, some people argue that we turn out the lights to reduce the background environmental noise and distractions, but why would you do that? Because if people reported it when the lights are on or daylight, that's when you should investigate. Not to mention when it's dark, your eyes are going to play tricks on you.
Right. You get all kinds. There's a term for when it's very dark and you stare at something and your eyes do the natural back and forth movement. I forget what the term is, but that becomes more prevalent when in the dark when you're staring at something and it looks like there's motion down at the end of a hallway or something. So yeah, I can see that being an issue. I don't know. I mean, I get it. As in, like, I understand why they turn the lights out.
It's a lot more fun when it's dark.
Yeah. I don't do it.
All right. So I don't see. We'll get that.
Tim is being extra good about getting all the questions up tonight.
Well, I feel it's important.
Thank you. I appreciate you for that.
Yes, of course. I would not want to purposefully dodge any questions. Let's see.
All right, Tim, do you have a piece of equipment you want to talk about?
Yes, kinda. So I skipped, like I said, I'm the host, so I'm going to skip equipment, so to speak. But this is a good segue because we were just kind of talking about one of the things I brought up, and that is when people do, I'm looking at my notes. So when people actually go ghost hunting, so instead of equipment, more like technique. Like why would you? I call it passive ghost hunting. Like, why would you go sit in the middle of a room and passively ask for things to happen, and then when it does, like a noise, why are there people that run or they don't actually investigate?
Dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, so I'm not as bright as those two on this.
Whatever.
Like I said, like I understand it, but I'm not that bright. But it does irritate me, passive ghost hunting. So that's one of the things I was looking for was some good video of examples of that. One, like, why would you do it? Like, why would you ask for something that make a noise? And then when you get a noise, let's just say you don't run. Why don't you get up, go see what the hell the noise was, go over to where it was? I don't understand. I don't, maybe some people do. I don't know. Same thing with ghost hunting at night, which was another one of mine I was going to talk about. I mean, that's fine. Like if you think you have to do it at night, whatever. But I think at least if you want to do it at night, you should also visit and look at it and check it out at the same time that the person had said that they experienced the ghost. I mean, no one says you can't do both, unless the owner of the facility or the person can give you one shot at it. And honestly, if you only have one shot to go in, I would pick the time that the person actually said that they saw the event. Even if it's not a ghost, you have at least the same idea of the environmental factors that were going on at the time that they saw it, as opposed to when they weren't. Now, it might have been at night, but if it was during the day, I would pick the time that they said that they saw it. Yeah. So passive ghost hunting.
I agree. I mean, I agree completely. Go. I mean, if you want to sit there and try to take in the environment and try to take in the experience and see if something happens, that's fine. But do it at the same time that they reported things happening, and take very careful notes and record the environment, everything from audio, video, data logging systems, kind of see if you can understand what happened and what was going on. But yeah, I mean, to ask for something to happen and then get scared and run the other way, that just reeks of thrill seekers, and they're not paranormal investigators or researchers at all. You're there to get scared, like you go to a haunted house on Halloween. You're there to have something that's going to scare the crap out of you, so you're going to go running. So if you're really truly serious about this field, don't go to a place, ask something to happen, and when it does, run the other way. It's a complete embarrassment.
Right.
Yep. It's a pet peeve, and it's one of the reasons I decided to like talk about that type of stuff. Was, you know, everybody says, "Oh, the most important part of paranormal investigation is yourself." Well, you know, if you're running from noises that you asked for, then you're not using your equipment very well either. The other thing that bothers me is when people say, "Did you hear that? It's at the end of the hall. Did you hear that? It sounded like it come above us." You know, and they're like, "I don't know. I'm like, go look. Just go look. Just get up, go look." I mean, I don't understand. Like, you're here to find something,
and you're running from what you're trying to find.
You came here for a purpose.
Even if you don't
you're not
run,
doing.
Yeah, even if you don't run, you just don't get up and go. It irritates me. It's a pet peeve. So,
and I hear a strange noise in my house at night. I'm going to get up and look for where the hell it's coming from. Now,
yeah,
I might have a certain self-safety protection device with me, but I'm going to go look for it. Not going to run the other way.
I think the definition of investigator gets lost on a lot of ghost hunters. Because they see the TV shows and they're like, oh, you know, that's what they do. They hear a noise or something happens that's real dramatic, and there's a pause. Everyone just stops and looks. You see that, like, that's a classic scene where it's like, bang, and everybody goes like that, and they cut the commercial, you know, or something like that. Yeah, exactly. And the idea of, if you're calling yourself an investigator, whether it's paranormal or whatever, if you put investigator in your title, that's your job. Go investigate. See what's going on. What caused the noise? What caused the door to open? What caused that shadow down the end of the hall? Figure it the fuck out. Do something.
They missed the point of investigator.
Yes. And you always, like you guys said, you always want to do things, recreate things under the same conditions. Like, get as close to the original conditions as possible. So if it was a dark, stormy night, yes, wait for a storm to come, because you want to see what's going on inside the environment at that time. If it's not, if it happened at 3 a.m. and you get there at 7 o'clock in the evening, what are you doing? You got a couple hours before anything happens. You want to get there at the time it happened, because maybe somebody came home next door at that time. Maybe, you know, something down the street. Maybe a factory let out. Maybe a business closed at that time. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of different scenarios that can play out. You have to be there at the same time. That's really, really important. If something happens during the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 p.m., afternoon, bright sunny day, somebody says they see a ghost, and you show up at 7 o'clock that evening and say, "Oh, we're going to be here till like 1."
Useless.
What the fuck is your problem?
I mean, I get it. Sometimes you're
the Philly's coming out.
Oh, the Philly's really coming out, man.
Figure it the fuck out. And what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, I get it.
Left over from last night.
Everybody understands that people work, they have real jobs. They don't do this full time and they don't get
Right.
paid for it for the most part. So I get that sometimes you have to do it around your work schedule. And a lot of times it's evenings, but you still have weekends and you might have days off. So instead of rushing in, maybe you wait until you can find that time to go there at the time they reported things happening.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, if you're simply going at night and something happens and you run the other way, you are nothing but a thrill seeker. You're there to get scared, and that's it. So don't call yourself a paranormal investigator. If you want to be a ghost hunter, fine. But maybe you need a whole new category called thrill seeker, paranormal thrill seeker.
It'd be more accurate.
What you're doing.
I understand your point. I really do. Like, yeah, we all work.
But don't
have
go into
jobs.
somebody's private home to do it. That's bullshit.
Oh,
Just
gives me a
don't
new
go to-
show idea.
Don't go to private homes. Just don't. But yeah, you want to. If nothing else, over the years I've learned, like, you have to get the exact details. When, where, how did this event happen? Okay, I'm going to get as close as those details as possible in order to recreate the event. And the third point that came up, I think Dave, you mentioned it about being or the best tools yourself. I don't know which one of you said it, but, like, no, I don't agree with that because not all of us are the same.
That's true. That's true.
We all look at things differently. We have a different perspective. We have a different take on it. We have different filters on how we process information that's coming in. So if you can have the extremes, and this is a hypothetical situation, but you can have a ghost hunting team that comes in that, is big on demons. They might come into a private house and say, well, you had a noise happening in your attic and it happened 3 times. And when it comes in threes, that's a insult to God and Christ and stuff. So it must be a demon that happens. Whereas someone like us might come in and go, well, I went up to the attic where the noise was because, we investigate and we found droppings from like a raccoon. So it might be a raccoon in your attic.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 different perspectives based on the same complaint.
But you can obviously get a demonologist and an exorcist and get Sister Mary Elephant.
Steve's exterminating wouldn't hurt either.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Actually, you guys wrapped up pretty much a lot of mine. But that's good. I mean, it's good. You being the other one was you being the most important ghost hunting tool was mine, and I think that probably may be true. But I was going to make an analogy like every other piece of equipment. You have to understand what the hell you're doing. You have to understand your limitations and what you're capable of. And you should also like sharpen that tool and read and learn from other people's mistakes and go out and make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, say you made mistakes and ask other people that know what the fuck they're doing or talking about. Hey, I made this mistake. What did I do wrong? Like ask. Like that's how you get better. And like at the beginning of the show, like I said, I love this show. Like I love the topics of equipment because it's not something that I understand a whole great deal of, like Kenny or Dave. But I can sit here and listen. Just from the very first with EMF meters, I've got several notes. I have them. I jot them down. At least I'll have something to remember. But at least you train to learn, and you fail and you learn, and you have successes and you learn.
Yep.
But yeah, go ahead.
Even if you are the only piece of equipment, it's you, and you can't afford all the fancy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Bring a recorder, bring a video camera, not to necessarily capture ghosts, but to record your observations. I mean, there's a lot of mainstream science that researchers record their observations. That's a legitimate field of science. and a way to collect data. But know your limitations, know your biases, know how to ask questions, and be a good investigator. I mean, obviously Kenny has some really good, ideas on that and suggestions for you, and how to solve mysteries, how to not debunk, but how to figure out what's really going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a good tool in an investigation, but you just need to. Some people are just tools in investigating.
Be a tool.
Some people are just freaking tools, but you can go there and be an observer and try to be the best objective observer that you can be. You're going to be subjective at some level, but if you're video recording and audio recording, you can go back and review that and type your notes and kind of hopefully realize that you need to pick apart your interpretation of the experience versus what really happened. So there's useful parts of it. It's just what you do with it and how do you present it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I would really like to address ghost boxes.
Oh, I love that.
I had a whole lot of time freed up last night or 2 nights ago, so I'm ready.
I'd love to get into it. So do you have stuff prepared, Dave, on this?
Ghost boxes?
Yeah.
I wrote down spirit box and others
Same
like
thing.
it.
Same thing. All right.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, I got some stuff. So let's go.
well, all right. So basically, I mean, because it did come up in the chat room, and this is something that I see a lot. So I'm just going off memory here. I didn't actually write notes down on this. Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I wrote some notes. Okay, I forgot how much I wrote. So basically, the ghost boxes / spirit boxes are broken radios. They are radios they're radios, and they are modified so that they can sweep through all the available frequencies, AM or FM or both, and without muting the sound, so that you hear everything coming through. And the standard practice with ghost hunters is that they ask questions while playing this, and they listen for answers. Anything that relates to their question. There's a lot of problems with this. A lot of problems. Just that's the basic idea. That's the basic thing that's going with that. So my first problem is that they're using a radio, and a radio is designed to pick up broadcasts. Terrestrial broadcast, not aliens, not ghosts or anything. We have radio stations out there that broadcast a signal. The radios pick it up. It's a receiver. It picks it up and it replays it for us to hear. So you have music, you have news, you have commercials, you have sports, you have politics and how many people died today, what their names were. You have commercials that deal with furniture and food and toys and the latest TV shows, the latest trends, everything you can imagine. So with all that coming through, you have a lot of potential. When you ask questions like, what is your name? I have no doubt you're going to get some kind of name. Not only from a broadcast, but if you're scanning through the frequencies, you have to remember that you don't have to be on the exact, like say, I'm going to use like 100.1. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be exactly on 100.1 to get 100.1 broadcast.
Right.
Okay. So you can be 100, you can be 100.2 or 3. You can also be 99.8 or 9 and still get the bleed over from that frequency. So with that said, and as it scans through the frequencies, and depending on your scanning rate, because you can adjust it, you can get snippets of words. You can get half a word, part of a word, 2 or 3 words. You can get words that are almost clear, but not enough. And you can pretty much make out whatever you want. So if you ask a certain question, and this goes back to the idea of, oh, crap. Oh, God. When they put the words up on screen for an EVP.
Priming.
Priming. Thank you, Dave.
Yes.
This goes back to priming. If you ask a certain question, like what is your name, you're primed to hear a name. You're listening for a name. You might not hear a name in reality, but you're going to hear a name.
Yep.
So with all of this stuff, one of my main issues or one of my main examples is that I tell people, take all your questions, your EVP questions that you're going to use on a ghost hunt, turn on your television, turn on the news, and sit there for a news broadcast. Ask your questions. Give yourself the 5 to 10 second space of silence in between each question, but go through all your questions and then listen for an answer that's specific to your question. And I guarantee that you will get all your answers. And I've done this several times. I've just never posted it because I didn't want to get copyright strike. Like, I'm thinking like, shit, I have to come up with an original like recording, so I can record it. But I don't want to do like this, the ABC news, primetime news, and put it up and just get in trouble. But you can do this with any news broadcast.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be just during the news segment. No. It can run into commercials. You can do it for anything. And you're going to get answers. Yep. So that's my big problem with that. And you can also do it with a radio, KYW News Radio. Just turn it on. Ask your questions. You're going to get answers. You're going to get names. You're going to get dates, numbers. You're going to get, how did you die? You're going to get something like stairs, chair, car accident, bus, whatever. You're going to get a fucking word that tells you somebody died by this way. And unfortunately, I think the ghost hunters they go with it. The ghost hunters don't create that experience. Wait, no. The radio doesn't create that experience. The ghost hunters do. Because they ask the questions, and whatever comes through, they retrofit the word that they hear into the question.
Okay. Yeah. It makes me think a little phrase when you were talking about the vagueness of it. It's to me, it just popped into my head like the vagueness of a word or a phrase is a ghost hunter's best friend. It is like it can be anything. You can tell people it's anything, and they'll hear it. I find that the vagueness of it is very important.
It is important. It plays a good role because the more vague it is, the more you can apply it to.
Oh, Tim Hart, one of the original data logger developers, he developed the Mesa system. So glad to see Tim in here tonight. So,
hi, Tim.
Hey, Tim. So why are investigators relying on ghost boxes? I think we covered some of this with some of the other stuff they do, because it allows them to get results that fit in with their beliefs. And they hear things that they want to hear. So I've seen people with spirit boxes and the apps on their tablets, and it's going through a speaker. They walk through a cemetery or a haunted location, and they hear something that fits their question and their context. It may or may not be what was actually said as it scans, but that's what they hear. So it confirms their belief, and it confirms and builds on what they want to hear and do. So my question is, how do ghosts know what to manipulate? So I'm sorry, but if I die and I'm going to come back and you're telling me I got to figure out how to manipulate this fucking radio so you hear something that is at the right time that this newscaster says, how am I doing that? I'd be like, come on, that's not going to happen. I mean, and the other thing is, we went on a ghost hunt with somebody one time, and they did the spirit box thing. I think they had the SB7, and we got all kinds of responses, or they got all kinds of responses on the top floor. When we moved into the basement, they said, well, that's funny. I think the spirits are quiet down here. Well, that's because you're not picking up the signal from the radio stations in the basement. So I don't know. I have a lot of problems with the spirit box and those type of things. To me, it comes down to what's the context. So if you separate the question from the answers, so if you take the answers only that you think are answers and give it to an independent group of people to analyze, see if they can even come to a consensus of what it says. That's the first step. And then the second step is, does it fit the context of the question? Does it seem like it's a response to the question? The third thing, is it accurate? And how do you find out if it's accurate or not unless you've done an in-depth analysis of the location? So you have to confirm that as well. So there's a lot of different issues that I think go on with the spirit boxes. And I don't know, it's obviously a growth out of instrumental transcommunication and EVP, and people are using this and hearing things, but I really just don't think the appropriate studies and the way to analyze it has been done. So I'm not going to say it's total crap, mainly because they haven't analyzed it and looked at it in some of the ways that I just described.
So I just posted a thing that I did with Mitch Silverstein and Stephanie Bond. We did an experiment or a study way back where we took a clipping from a ghost box and we played it. We had different groups. We had one group where we had the question and the response, and we had one group with the response, and I mean, it goes into a quite detailed study of people's responses, and it touches on what you just said, like the context of what people are hearing, third-party people hearing a recording, and what do they hear? Do they hear the same thing that the ghost hunters hear that asked the question? Usually no. It came up, we had it all over the place. I mean, the responses were all over the board. But this, I think this just plays, the ghost box is one of those devices that are perfect. It's a perfect storm for ghost hunters. It perfectly fits into their narrative, their belief system, because it's so vague. It's so vague and ambiguous that it can produce any kind of sounds and provide any kind of answer that you want to your questions. And it really seems like it's answering you.
It's like an auditory Rorschach test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
You're scanning the frequency at a certain, I mean, you spend so much time in every channel, right? So how am I influencing that as a ghost?
Right.
Do I need to be influencing every broadcaster that says something at a certain time? Or am I influencing what you hear? And if that's what's going on, how are you going to prove that? Right. And honestly, if I'm a dead guy trying to communicate, that's way too much damn work for me. But I'm a lazy guy. I like the easy route.
I'm going to a lake in the mountains. If I'm a dead guy, I ain't messing around. I ain't coming back with nobody. In like Jamaica.
It's absolutely what people think they hear. That's all it is. Because I guarantee you, if you did the experiment, and I've read Kenny's paper and what they did with Mitch, and if you take that even further and break out individual phrases and give it to a group of people that had nothing to do with that, just to find agreement, and then to see if it's within the context of the question, and if it's accurate. Where's that data? Show me. If you think it really works, that should be easily proved. Go to a place that has a good history, good history that's been recorded, and you have a pretty good idea of what the historical facts are. And if you record something, you should be able to have everybody agree what the word is that answers the question, and it's related to the location. It's not that hard. So why the hell don't people do it?
Relax, Dave. I want to comment. I did at one point. There was I was at an event. It was like a conference event at a place, and there was a ghost hunt that night, and I was able to attend. I was invited to attend, and they pulled out a ghost box, one of these Huff inspired pieces of shit. and they started playing it.
Hmm.
They're hearing words. They're getting the standard responses, and they're all excited about it. Like, oh, it sounds like it's answering our questions. And I said, look, I anticipated this. I have a Faraday box that I built that's in my car. I'll go get it and bring it in here. You put that radio in here, and if you get responses, I'll leave time for the ghost to get into the box. And it's big, so there's plenty of room for them. I'll close the lid. If you get responses, I will totally say, yes, it's real. Yeah. And as soon as we got it into the box, nothing, dead, complete silence. It actually turned into like a nice wave, like a ocean wave kind of sound. Like, shh, but nothing, no words, nothing, no radio signals came through. So for me, that just showed like, all right, once you take the radio signals out,
you're not going to get anything.
You're not getting anything.
So Bob made a good point. So basically, if you're using a ghost box with a Civil War soldier, they're not going to know how to use the damn thing.
Right.
I would look at that. I mean, maybe 100 years from now, when I'm dead and if I come back, I'd look at something they're trying to communicate with me with, and I'd be like, I don't know what the hell that is. What do you want me to do with that?
And
I mean, there's so many problems.
That's the one question you can ask the ghost hunters. All right, so if this device, whatever it is, a ghost box, spirit box, K2 meter, whatever, it's out there, you manipulate that.
I did hear that James Randi, because he did a lot of work on this, knows how to manipulate those devices. See, now, Kenny, calm down. Settle down.
I need a moment.
Oh, that's some bad acting from another show.
Talking to you. About. Shut up. Don't talk to me.
So while you marinate on those, I'll say, like, we've done this, and you've guys helped me do this before. I tried it. I've tried it on my own.
Don't have your head explode.
I took various clips of a famous EVP person that rhymes with fluff and put out just what you say, just not the question, just what is supposed to be the data. It was what's supposed to be the response. I put that in a small video so that the audio can hear. No video with it, just black backdrop. Some of the problems I had was nobody was like, I'd throw it out to 100 people and maybe 2 or 3 people would send it back to me. Then we tried it, and the same thing kind of happened. We tried it. I like that idea. I really like that idea, having other people listen to it. And an idea that I didn't think about that you brought up, Dave, which I really like, is like thinking about the context of it. So I guess maybe another way to test it, and correct me if maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, but if the majority of the people come back and say that they're hearing the right thing, like they're hearing what this person's saying that it's hearing, then could you put the question in front of the correct answer? But then, I don't know, maybe that's bad. I'll throw it out there. It is bad. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, wow, this sucks, Tim. But have a multiple choice to see which one looks like it has more context to the answer, which might be actually kind of misleading. But if you could pick answers at random and throw in which looks like it has better context to the answer to this, A, B, C, D, or E, or all of them, or none of them, to see if you could hit the accuracy of to see if it matches, if the answer matches the context of the question. Am I rambling? Am I like too buzzed, or does that make sense?
That makes sense. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I'm pretty sure there's some literature out there and ways to do it. But yeah, I mean, just because you agree on a word, there's got to be a way you have to assess, as you said, Tim, the context.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does it fit the question? I'm sure there's ways to do it. I'm just not familiar with them, but I got to imagine it's out there. And not only does it fit the context, is it accurate? Is
Right.
the answer accurate? So there's multiple, to me, it's almost like a multiple level validation of what was said.
I think there's also the issue when you do that, you're forcing participants to choose from choices rather
Well,
than having
See,
an
I,
open.
I would leave it free form because
Yeah.
that's otherwise you could potentially lead people
sure.
to something
Leading them.
which could
Yeah.
bias the results.
So yeah, if you have like 4 or 5 choices, they're going to look at it and say, all right, obviously I have to pick one of these.
Hmm.
It's got to be one of these. And what does it sound like?
Well, maybe you
Or-
could add or none.
I think the key is an independent group that knows nothing about where you were at, knows nothing about the questions you were asking, and knows nothing about the context of the past or the history.
Yeah.
I want to throw this question up because I've seen it in the past. I don't want to get too far where I can't find it. I want to make sure I want to come back to it. Dave?
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean,
how do you feel about good old dowsing rods or pendulums?
Won't use them. Don't agree with them. It's there's an idiomotor effect, and Kenny has a great setup to test this and show what they're talking about.
There you go. So this
It's like the microphone. It is making the coolest damn noise.
is that making a noise?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yep.
Does it happen when I touch it? There?
Doink.
Ooh, I'm
Doink.
going to have to listen to the replay and see what it does.
Yep.
All right. So this was designed by Mitch Silverstein, and great tool. I love this tool. So it's a pair of rods with the handles. These are the handles that came with them, and they are locked into these 2 acrylic bars. So now I cannot manipulate them back and forth like this. I can't do this. There's also a bubble level on the bottom, so I can tell where, if it's level. I've been using this for years, asking people to, hey, pick up the rods, do what you do. Like if you ask questions and you get responses, usually it's like if they cross, it's yes. If they go out, it's no. Or, if you're pointing to something, by all means, do what you do. And I mean, we're talking like 6 years now, 7 years now. I've used these. And as long as they're locked in place, they can't manipulate them.
Yep.
And this is not inhibiting the user's ability to transfer energy.
Oh.
Because
I'm all out. Like I have already
I
drank.
know I'm out too. Because that's what I get a lot of times. Like, oh, well, the energy comes from the earth. It comes up through me into my hands, into the rods. And if I can't hold the rods, then it's not working. But these are the actual handles that came with the rods. So it's not interfering. Nice. Thanks, Bob. It's not interfering at all. So basically, you're stuck with holding this there.
Yeah.
I usually stand next to you and look at I focus on the bubble level here so I can see, because even if you don't keep it level, it doesn't matter. Once you start tilting it either way or dipping it, I can see where the bubble goes, and I know that you're moving it. I'm not saying that you're deliberately hoaxing or trying to trick me. Most of the time, I think the people are doing it without realizing they're doing it.
Yep. Idiomotor.
Yeah. It really comes back to that. But this is I love this thing. I have several testers like this. I have one for pendulums. I have one for the Ouija board. But this,
I have one.
yes, you do.
Mm-hmm. I keep it in my office.
I think this is the most effective tool for testing dowsing because it's not interfering with the alleged ability or the process, and it demonstrates what's really going on.
Yep.
I like to because I run into so many people in my office, and when they're like, "Oh, you do ghost stuff," and if that's making it short, you know how it goes.
They do the hand movement and all.
Yeah, woo. It's like, if dowsing rods come up and they're like, oh yeah, water witching, especially when you get into Appalachia, it's probably Appalachian culture. It's probably also in other cultures, but people swear about finding well water that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when they talk about it, they always say, oh, my uncle or my grandpa or my great uncle. And I'm like, hey, it just so happens I have some dowsing rods. Why don't you go get a cup of water and just slide it underneath? Or if you want gold, or if you want silver, or if you want like whatever you think is supposed to be found, let's just see if it works. And we keep it steady, and I let them slide whatever metal or cup of water they want. And guess what happens?
Nothing. I had a neighbor across the street. I had posted, this is years ago, I posted something about like for a weekend experiment. I was looking for people that do dowsing. Come on over. I want to do some tests. I didn't plan on using your name. Just come on over. I want to see if you can do what you say you can do. And my neighbor across the street came over and he's like, oh yeah, we use these all the time to find water lines. I'm like, okay. So we're talking. I'm like, so if I turn on my hose and you walk across it, these rods are going to cross. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I gave him this rig, turn the hose on, go ahead. And he walked across it. Nothing. Walked back, walked forward, nothing.
Yep.
I was like, okay. He's like, I don't know. I don't get it. This usually works. Maybe it's this rig. I'm like, no, it's acrylic. It's not magnetic. There's nothing you're holding that will affect what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The rods are moving freely. If they're going to cross because of water, should happen.
Yep.
So when it didn't, he didn't have an excuse. He didn't accept that it didn't work. He continued to believe it did work, which is a shame. But it's funny. I mean, funny story. I took this to a UFO conference. Oh my God. Worst experience ever, because apparently like a guy came up, thought they were really interesting. And then he went and told a woman that he had met earlier, who was the president of the Baltimore Dowsing Society,
Ooh.
who was not happy and came over and started screaming at me. And when I say screaming at me.
What?
In the audience hall, that I was saying they were fake and that I'm a disgrace to this. I shouldn't be here. And I said, did you read the sign? It doesn't. It says a testing tool that I don't say it's fake. It's a testing tool. And I gave it to her to say, here, try it. Show me, because I'd really be interested. And then I whispered, I was like, Donna, my wife, take pictures. I actually was trying to get her to take video, but she took some pictures of the lady screaming at me. The lady picked them up like this. And she was like, okay, show me yes. Show me yes. They didn't do anything. Show me yes. Take them and went, wham! Threw them down on my table.
Really?
Oh my God. Threw them down on the table in such anger and walked off screaming how fucking stupid I was, this and that. And I was like, I'm not the one that failed. So
I love Bob's comment. Worst experience ever. Comic book guy from The Simpsons.
Oh, I gotta find that picture now.
Oh my God. Too funny.
So
Dowsing rods work? Couldn't we confirm it without humans?
Well, I think it depends on the claim they're making. That, like Kenny said, if they think they're picking up the energy drink, which we have nothing left to drink,
I'm out.
that allows them or causes them to have an impact on those rods, or it's read by the rods, that it actually has to be picked up and transferred through the human body of the person holding them.
Right.
I mean, you got to look at the claim, and I think what Kenny has rigged up is pretty damn good, because if people say that I am part of this, I'm influencing it, that might actually work with the system he has, because you're still in physical contact with it.
Right. And that's the point. That's the point. You're still in physical contact with the rods.
Mhm.
There's nothing blocking you
Yep.
from.
It's just not allowing you to put pressure on them to
Right.
turn them a certain way.
Yeah.
So
And there's
Yeah.
a great video. It looks like it comes from a UK or a British or a channel where they tested up a lot of dowsing. They did a lot of experiments where they hid different bottles in boxes and asked people to come in and find.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Richard Dawson.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a pretty
Yeah.
popular guy. It was
He did it. And it was in a tent. It was at a psychic fair. He put up a tent. He had several boxes with cartons or bottles of water underneath, and he was asking people to find the water,
mhm,
and all of them failed.
mhm.
Yeah.
So good comment by Tim Hart again. You'll always be attacked for trying to show scientific procedures. Absolutely. And that's probably why the three of us are together.
Nice.
You might have cracked part of the hint. It was why we ended up together.
He's new to the show, but I think he caught on quickly. But no, I totally agree. The biggest backlash that I've gotten, and Tim and Kenny have gotten, is trying to get people to think and apply the scientific method or scientific procedures. And people get pissed off. And it's really a shame, because to me, if there is something going on, and maybe there is, we don't know yet, but if you can rule out the stuff that's false positives and you can really get at it and you can really experiment, to me, it would mean a lot more if you had a positive result. That's it. There's nothing wrong with trying to question somebody. But yeah, you're right, Tim. You end up attacking a belief system, and that's the problem. It's a belief system.
Yeah.
And yes, JD, I get unfriended. Boo frickin' who. Anyway, so yeah.
We're gonna have to like keep more alcohol near.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to get a mini fridge put under my desk.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I'm building up quite the tolerance around you guys.
See, good. I keep a stash, so I do have some alcohol. I have a stash with plenty of little shot glasses, so I'm good to go. Yep. But I do want to be able to get up in the morning and do something.
That's yeah.
But, yeah.
Any other questions? Any other ideas?
Anything else?
It was a fun show.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Just want to make sure we're not missing any questions.
We don't want to miss questions.
Dave, do you see any there?
Before we say that.
Let me see. I'm going to ignore that one and that one.
And other ones from you.
And Bob, I'm not even going to address that, so we're good. Okay. I don't see any other things.
All right.
Don't call me out for it, asshole.
Oh, all right. Final words then, I guess.
Yeah. You go ahead. I'll start. You go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dave.
Okay. On equipment, know what it is, know the limitations, know what it can and can't do, and be able to record the data so you can either or analyze it and present it to somebody else for analysis as well. The whole thing with equipment is people don't understand how it works. They're not collecting any quantitative or qualitative data. It's really people running around looking for flashing lights or trying to scare themselves. So with equipment, save yourself the money, buy quality equipment. If you want to collect data, and be able to present it and analyze it and get other people to talk to you about it. That's it.
Wow. So yeah, building on that, the equipment that's out there, especially stuff that's marketed directly to ghost hunters, don't bother. Don't waste your money. It really is not. It's not tested. It's not it's not proven. It is a novelty. They are novelty items. They are novelty items that are easily taken apart and you can see what's inside. They're a waste of time. Read a science book. Learn how the processes of science goes. Learn what controls are. Learn how to do experiments. Learn what to look for. Read investigative books. Learn how to look for details and to think critically. That's your best tools right now, because at the basic level, if we're talking about a ghost, no one knows what the qualities of a ghost is. There's speculation, there's hypothesis, there's made up shit all over the place, all over the World Wide Web, but none of it is confirmed. So you have no freaking clue what the qualities of a ghost is. Therefore, you cannot measure a ghost because you don't know what you're looking for. There's plenty of stuff in the environment that can trick you. We've gone over it tonight with especially with EMF meters. There's a lot of stuff that can trick you and screw you up. So read the manuals. Learn what the equipment does. Read the manual. That's the most simple, basic thing you can do. Yet, who does it? Not many people. At least not in this community. I guess that's it. There's not really much more to say about equipment. It's not. Yep. There's good equipment. Data loggers. Dave posts. He promotes the shit out of that, and I agree. Yeah. Data loggers are important because it gives you a timeline. You can look at every second. Even it's even more than that when you really get into it. But you can look over a time frame. You can create a timeline of data and say what happened at 2:31 and 32 seconds, and you can get that data.
Yep. And you can start looking for correlations between, did you have an experience? Did something else happen? And, if Tim Hart is still here, he should post where you can read his papers. He has stuff published in peer-reviewed journals that he's done this a long time. And it's more meaningful and it's more interesting. There might be something to it. There might be something to environmental things having an influence on you. There could be a correlation with paranormal activity, but you got to be able to, as Kenny said, record it and be able to look at it. Okay. Tim just said, we measure it 40 times a second. That's great. I got one piece of equipment that does 300 to 400 samples per second and a fluxate magnometer. So that's the type of information you want. You want to be able to collect enough data to look at it and see, is there really something going on, that you have enough precision and accuracy, and you can do some sort of analysis on it and see if there's correlations.
And know the difference between a weekend warrior, ghost hunter,
and a researcher.
An investigator that is serious about investigating the case to solve the mystery. That's the point. An investigator wants to solve the mystery. A ghost hunter is a thrill seeker. If you're going to use the big boy term or the big girl term, fucking live up to it. Otherwise, just, have your fun, but don't preach to the choir. Don't try to teach others your weekend warrior bullshit. Because you're just screwing up everything.
Yep.
All right, I'm good. I'm sufficiently buzzed. It's almost 2 hours. I need to fucking pee. I need to get out of here.
Well, I'll make mine quick. I just have a couple things. So for Bob, in a general sense, we together had watched a Training is Too Strong, another podcast, and we kind of just discussed it amongst ourselves. Dave had asked a very poignant and difficult question, and when somebody had mentioned that they hadn't read Dave's question, the host of the show looked at it and said, well, we've read everything, and just skipped over Dave. So So we're giving Dave a little bit of grief. Because when Dave mentioned it, he was told to relax.
All I said was, thanks for answering my question. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm an asshole.
Yeah, so there you go, Bob. But it didn't happen here. It was just somewhere else.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to, since I know I got to go. I forgot my Depends. So I got to go. I put my alcohol in coffee. So I'm like buzzed and like, got to go. Woohoo! I want to reiterate the importance. Data loggers, Dave a long time ago, I remember data loggers, but I never really got into them. Listening to Dave talk about them over the time has really reinvigorated my interest in them, mainly because you actually have data. Like you actually have something you can, for lack of a better word, sink your teeth into. Like you can look at it, like you have a measurement of something. Doesn't mean it's a ghost, but you have a measurement of something. And once you can, it's just so different from a blinking light or a buzzing sound. It really interests me about data logger. So I like those.
You still need controls over it though.
Sure.
I don't want us to put out the idea like, oh, all you need is data loggers.
No,
you need controls over that environment too.
Well, that and you need to know how to analyze it.
Yeah. I mean,
well, hold on. Wait,
there's a lot more to it.
Another show. Maybe we can get Tim and Dave. Get Tim on. We'll do another show with.
Yeah, definitely. If we get Tim on, that'd be great.
There you
I
go.
hope he drinks.
That's a requirement for the show.
It's a requirement. You have to drink when someone says the E word too. So I think it's good. I mean, it would be good. Like, I don't know that much about it, but I know that I'm very interested about it. So I shouldn't speak about it. But I sure would like to learn more about it.
Right. Other
than that, mine was just about techniques. I think Kenny kind of got that. I mean, if you're going to investigate. If you hear a noise, go see what the noise is. If you think you see something, go see what you thought you saw. I mean, if you're there to investigate, go investigate. The passive ghost hunting is just really bizarre. I don't think you're actually ghost hunting if you're doing passive ghost hunting. If you just want to go there and listen for sounds, you're going to hear sounds. So whatever. It's, if you're going to investigate, go investigate.
Yep.
And that's about it for me, so that everybody can go. Let me make sure. Let me check the.
Make sure you didn't miss any questions.
That's right.
Settle down, both of you.
You relax.
All right.
All right, cool.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. Have a great Valentine's Day tomorrow. I appreciate you guys. I really hope to hear more from Tim. If he gets his website up, I'd love to link that up so that people can go to see that with our site as a resource. I think it's important if he's okay with that, but I'm sure you guys will talk. Other than that, you guys have a good night. And I have been practicing. I'm going to get out of here.
Don't screw it up.
I'm going to screw it up.
Don't screw it up.
It's going to get screwed up.
You're screwing it up.
I am screwing it up. You're putting pressure.
Don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance. With the real, just what the need. With the real, don't put it real. Don't question me. Dave was about, Dave was about. Don't summer loop, I'm on TV. Don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance. And what you say, oh, you'll get to better.